Hey guys, welcome to Reza Riffs. Uh, this is part 2 of the interview with Mike Starr. We just had a blast, so we went over the limit. I thought I'd release it in 2 parts so it could be more enjoyable for you guys. Also, if you listen to part 1, you see how enjoyable it is. It gets right back into it. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Book me on Cameo, and my special's still out. A couple dates. I'll be at the Rec Room July 3rd with Pablo Francisco. Tickets are almost sold out. Then I'll be at the Rec Room again with Dat Fam August 7th. And then August 14th with the Rec Room with Hal Sparks. So buy your tickets, www.recroomhb.com. And enjoy the show. We also are probably going to do a live at the Rec Room Reza Riffs podcast with Pablo on July 3rd. I think tickets will be $15. So buy your tickets and support. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of the interview with Mike Starr. And book him on Cameo. I booked him. It's really worth it. All right, guys.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.
I got a podcast one time and I was telling a story about being on Ed Wood. And I told the story and I said, "Ooh, that might come off a little weird. Can you do me?" And I called the guy back like 3 times. "Would you make sure you took that out? Because that could be taken wrong." And the wardrobe guy and Johnny Depp, because Johnny Depp was so great.
Oh, was this the one where you said that you purposely avoided calling him or something? Or he gave you his number and you just...
No. Now I'm trying to think that was another one.
Yeah. Because I like to do my research because I don't like to ask the same questions. So I like to listen to a lot of interviews, before... Because I feel like when people ask the same questions, it's just kind of like, I like to have a special one-on-one.
Yes. Well, you got me. I have to tell you, one of the only people that I froze up in front of 2 people. Gene Hackman complimented me once, the great actor. He was one of my idols. He's one of my idols. But
I asked him to do this.
Really?
Yeah.
He might be very shy.
No, they said he's retired and he's not in good health. And I said, well, this is a perfect time. That's what he said. And I said, this is a perfect time because he might die. I'll never interview him if he dies.
No, you make a very good point. Gene Hackman, I believe, was it right around the end of World War II? I mean, he's old enough to have been that, I know he retired. He used to go eat at my friend's place in Burbank. And I was on the movie Birdcage with Nathan Lane, and I was cut out, and there was a good reason I was cut out. I did a dramatic scene with Robin Williams, and Mike Nichols, the director, wrote me a beautiful letter, but he felt it had taken away from the comedy, and that's a story I can tell you. If I find the letter, I could show you. But Gene came up to me and told me he liked my work on The Bodyguard, and I was like, this was my guy. But that, you make a good point. He's such a story, but I think, I can't remember now what they call China Marines. I think that was right before, around Korea or like that. I mean, he's got to be up in years,
Yeah. He's probably 89, 90 maybe. He's pretty...
Well,
yeah.
If you look at it, Robert Duvall, I believe, just turned 90. I get to work with him. You see these guys, Dustin, and even Dustin, I'm not sure how old Dustin is, but you see these guys all lived like in the village together. You find out later on. They all came to New York and they studied with, New York acting teachers, and they struggled together. And you find out they were all like some of these real famous, big time, they go Hollywood actors. No, had really made their bones in New York,
Yeah.
And but you know who I froze in front of? And I wanted to tell him so bad, specific stuff, and I should have. Nathan Lane had a 50th birthday party, and we were doing The Odd Couple. And you cannot believe the list of people there. Neil Simon, always Mel Brooks, and Joanne said, "Go up and say hello to him." And I went, "Hi, this is my wife, the doctor," something like that. And he said, "How do you come here?" I said, "I'm doing it." And I wanted to tell him so bad that he had such an influence on me when I was a kid. My brothers would let me watch. If you ever look up Show Up Shows, you can see some clips from it. But the list of writers on it, Woody Allen, Carl Reiner, these people formed American comedy, you know? Yeah. And a lot of, like, lack of a better, term, just like Brooklyn Jewish guys that had a serious culture in New York or the Lower East Side that influenced that people don't realize. I tell people, you don't even realize how much even Broadway theater was. They did a special on PBS about, again, and I don't make it as a religion, it's a cultural thing, about certain writers who snuck in seemingly puffy musicals, but they snuck in real serious moral messages. And a lot of them happen to be of, I say, culturally Jewish background from Brooklyn and New York. And here's Mel Brooks, who influenced my life. And he used to say, I remember he was interviewed one time, and I wanted to tell him this. He said that the only immigrants who spoke, Brooklyn was a very different world then. The only immigrants who spoke English, only European immigrants, were the Irish. So Mel Brooks said, you had all these Jewish kids running around talking like Jimmy Cagney because we learned English from the Irish, and it was such a great thing. Hey, Ma, listen to me, Ma. James Cagney, the famous Irish American actor who was, I got to meet him at least and say something to him because I worked on his last job. And I know what you mean about wanting to talk to people before they die. Yeah. But he might, sometimes people, when they look a certain way or their voice may not, they don't want to be in the public eye. I can't speak for Gene, but he was shy to begin with. But Mel Brooks, I wanted to tell him, there's a Woody Allen movie called Radio Days. And in the opening, Paulie Herman and I play these guys who rob a house. It was like an in the dark. And they get a phone call and I answer it like an idiot. And you cut back and you see this great thing in Woody Allen, the Radio City Music Hall. It's the 40s. And it says, "Mr. Needleman, you've been chosen on Name That Tune," or whatever, right? And I answer it, and we actually start naming the tunes. But one of the songs was "Dancing in the Dark," and I started singing it like that, dancing in the dark, and I'm singing it like that because Mel Brooks said up in the mountains, we called it, Catskills. He said when all the comedians were there, he said there was always an old guy, and he was on Johnny Carson, who would sing "Dancing in the Dark" and stand up on the couch. And I wanted to tell him that story, that I got to sing that. And it was a bit, and I should have. I have very few regrets because just what you say, I didn't want to say the normal stuff. Hey, I like this. Hey, I like, Blazing Saddles. Oh, you're funny. And, I grew up in this neighborhood or whatever. I knew people from Brooklyn, and that's why I'm glad you picked very specific things. And here I go. I've had 2 cups of tea and I'm talking like a mile a minute.
This is fun though. But like the reason why I have a podcast because I do stand-up comedy, and actually my mentor who I opened for, Norm Macdonald, who loves you.
Now no, I've met him once.
He's the person you're doing a cameo for Father's Day for him.
Oh, you gotta be kidding. No.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He is one of the all-time favorites. My friend Gary, who was on the Carson Show, who's an iconic bartender, a famous bartender, what they say a celebrity bartender, for 40 years up in LA, in Burbank. He and I will play Norm Macdonald's bits, and there's no one like him. And my friend Brad Isaacs, who wrote a lot of big shows like News Radio, this and that, and Gary Shandling.
Drake Sather, too. He wrote for News Radio.
Okay. Because I did an episode of that, and Joe Rogan, I know for years, and this and that. But Norm, he told Norm, you got to do a sports show. And Norm did it, one of the greatest sports shows, and I don't know how it didn't last, because he's got He
Sports
is like,
show with Norm Macdonald, Comedy Central, 2011, right?
that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we loved it. We watched it religiously. And God, I don't know this would be a very special thing. I mean, they're all special, but I got requested sometimes by people from my neighborhood. And I said, oh, you should have just called me. But I got requested. A young guy said, my dad, I don't know if you'll remember him. And he's producing now, but he was an electrician, lighting guy. And the guy was always great to me. And I said, oh, how do I do this without sound like I'm pandering or looking for a job? And I put it off. And I finally just spoke from the heart. And I just talked about one of my friends who had passed away, who I met him through, was a crazy Cockney guy who was just one of my best friends in the world. And he was super healthy until his mid 80s. And then he had gotten a cancer thing, but he was just, I learned so much and he helped me out so much back in the day. I had big relations with crew guys and teamsters. It sounds crazy, you know, but because a lot of them were neighborhood guys or I met through Smitty. And I did this, and I finally just did the cameo. It lasted I think 15 minutes. It was so absurd. And I said, we were in Vermont together on Funny Phone, and I remember, and he had talked to me because it was a real partying world in those days. It might still be, but in the closet, but it was like people were drinking. And then, of course, in the 80s, I know, I'm not saying he did, but there were people cocaine. And I remember him, he had, I remember talking to him one day and in the hot tub about how he didn't do things, and how important it was to stay healthy and not go off the deep end as so many people did. And, excessive drinking was like at a time, I don't know what the world's like now, but it was an accepted thing with even actors. Anthony Hopkins, I'm not an AA or anything like that, but Anthony Hopkins has done so many wonderful things because his era, people were hammered on stage. And he's done a lot of wonderful things for people. He's been active in, I think, AA for 30-something years, 40 years. But
did you see his new film, The Father?
It's a hard thing for me to watch. I'm sorry, because there's things in my life now and with different people, and I will watch. It was
fantastic.
I will watch it as only for interest and respect, but I tend to not watch, especially with the things my wife sees. But I have relations with people that I tend not to watch things that go like this. I'm a comedy guy, and I will watch it, but. What I was saying is I finally did it, and I went, oh, I hope I did that right. But I just spoke as sincerely as I could. I got a message. This was my dad's greatest birthday present ever. I went, wow. And then, and he said, it was great, and I'm so hearing from you. And the guy did a big monologue on Cameo about my career and about this is why he's one of the greats. And I'm like, oh, God, no. And special, and look up his life and this and that. And great guy and this and that, but it was funny. It paid off, and I don't mean it narcissistic or self-centered to say that, but it meant a lot to me that it came out right. This one will be very challenging because Norm had a series, and they flew me all the way back. I did not want to come back. I said, I'm not right for the character. And could you imagine who was there? It was the three of us that made it down the network. None of us got the part because it was supposed to be a nerdy guy. And Norm was a ex-hockey player. And I knew that. I said, no, I'm wrong for it. The agent said, no, they want to fly you back. They want to do this. I said, oh, I'm on the East Coast. I got a friend, but my wife's there with a family. And can you imagine I'm saying that I need the job? But I knew that we were wrong. And Craig Ferguson, the guy who had the late night show?
Yeah, he has a snake cup, yeah.
Yes. Well, he was there. He was just kind of beginning in the States. He had been honored, won all these awards, I guess, in the UK or whatever. Myself and Fred, I apologize for names. He was in Best in Show. He was on so many shows. He just passed away about a year ago. He would come on.
Fred Willard.
Fred Willard, right? The three of us were there. Now, these two guys were phenomenal. Three of us were there, and we had to go read with Norm. None of us were right from it, but Norm was so cool. And I said, I hope I see you someday. and none of us got it. And I knew we were wrong for it. But they make you sign all these things. You're going to make all this money. You're going to do all this stuff. And you say, and Fred Willard is like, well, he was one of the superstars. Great. And look at Craig Ferguson, what happened with him. And they were just so cool to be with. And we just knew, if anything, maybe Fred could have made it work. But I knew what they were looking for, a cliched like nerd. And I'm telling the agent, we're wrong. I'm telling you, we're wrong. I'm wrong for this.
Yeah.
Please. Well, I said,
he loves you very much. He actually was probably going to co-host this episode, but he couldn't do 10.
Oh, so all right. So I don't have to preach myself. He couldn't do what?
Yeah, he wanted to, because I usually have a co-host, but he's like at work. So I asked Norm if he wanted to step in and co-host, and he wanted to. But I thought he loves you like very much. You're one of his heroes.
Oh, great. Kevin Pollak had the first, I think, live podcast or something like that out of California, and I had worked with his co-host, his friend, and I said I'd love to do it. And this was about 5 years ago, and I had detached retina surgery. Oh God, I don't know if I want that on the podcast. Boy, if you have anything in this world, oh my God, we can't hire him. He's sick. He said, no, I had this thing that fighters and different people get and regular people get, but I couldn't do it for the longest time. And then it just kind of drifted away. And I always felt bad that I didn't do the show. So I'm so glad that I just went, yeah, just get off your ass and do this today. Oh, so I do this for Norm. It's got to be before Father's Day. Okay.
Like after this, I'm gonna like literally book it right now, and hopefully I could get it today. So like, I
wish I could just do it for free for you or something like that, or just.
No, I want to support you. So that's
like, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you're doing an interview for me. Like I want to support you, and it'll mean a lot to him. So like it'll mean a lot to me too. But I do want to respect your time, but I do have 3 questions.
Please, no, I don't do anything for another. I can't even tell what time it is.
It's 11 o'clock.
I start yapping. No, please. As long as you have time, I have time. I'm not doing anything for another 2 or 3 hours.
Okay.
I'll get news. By the way, all this walking, one of the things, one of the reasons I've felt so much super healthier, and I'll tell one, oh God, no, this will be on, it'll sound self-serve, but I'm like, I feel the best I felt in like 20 years, getting back into old things when I was, doing that. And it's funny how things can get away from me, like Dumb and Dumber. I look at that, I said, how the hell did I gain so much weight so fast? It's like, I look at it and go, oh shit. But I'd go through periods, I'd be watching kids, this and that, and I would eat mindlessly. I wasn't like I wasn't a falling down drunk, but I would, whatever I consumed a lot of times. And one of the great things is I walk a lot, and I become one of those, not like, I'm not timing, and it's just like a natural thing that I've got to walk to, I got to go to Home Depot. People say, you walked all the way there. I said, it's only a couple of miles. So I'll stop, go to another place. Oh, hang out in Barnes and Noble a bit. Oh, I got to get something at Office Depot. And I turn around and I've walked like 6 miles. So
before the pandemic, I used to do that too, because I'm kind of on the overweight side. But before I was like walking, losing weight. And then when the pandemic happened, there's no place to go because everything was closed. So I kind of got over walking.
Yeah, what I did was I just started walking, finding new areas around here. And then maybe when the pandemic was, when it was really restricted, I would maybe go into a store. I was so crazy, grab something quick, buy something. And my wife didn't want me going anywhere. And I would come back and go right into the shower downstairs. I'd take off everything, put it in the washing machine, all that stuff, wipe down this and wash the mask. But I just found myself in the beginning, I said, I got to actually, because of my age and everything, I'm going, they're looking about all the risk factors, weight, this and that. And I trained, my wife got me a Nordic track, so that made a big difference. And but I trained, and I used to do a lot of things, martial arts, whatever. And things came back to me, but I found myself, not that I'm any master of any of these things, but I found myself in the beginning trying to do it and then becoming quite hooked on it. You know what I mean? So, and that's what it takes. But that's the whole thing. If you weren't allowed to go to places, it was a pain. And I found places I didn't know exist around here. And there's some really great trees. And I was walking. I said, "What the hell is this? Where is that?" You know. So that's a big thing. I think it helps with anxiety.
And I personally, because I work at a grocery store. Like, I wasn't scared of getting it. What I was scared was bringing it home to someone from my family getting it. So
that's
I think
why we couldn't have anyone here.
Yeah. So like that was my biggest fear because I love my mom very much, and if she got it, like my grandma got it, and she survived, so that sucked. But
that's great. My wife would come back, and there was one time she thought there was someone, I don't know, we like not separated, I mean married, but different places, and we kept a mask on, and then she was tested, she was okay, but there was, like you said, some people around her, and that was that's why she was so careful about me, and I was careful about, if I go into a store and pick something up or whatever, or a bank or whatever, and then you come back, and in the beginning, I would wear scarves, and, you found out that you had to wear a mask, but, people would yell things. Hey, in the beginning, they all thought they were original. Watch out, that guy's wearing a mask, whatever scarf, they thought it was funny.
Yeah.
You've had things in Huntington. I was just talking about Huntington Beach. That's kind of a controversial area.
Did you see the well? There was like 2 weeks ago, I'm so sorry, but.
No, tell me. No, I'm into this.
It was like 2 weeks ago, like a gray well. I forgot how it was huge though, but it swam up on the beach.
Wait, that I didn't know. I was hearing things because we would go down to Crystal Cove, and there was a gigantic like football fish that's like lives in thousands of feet of water showed up on the shore.
Yeah.
And we used to go down to watch the dolphins, and we'd actually go to Hawaii at a special time to go whale watching. And oh my God! So it washed up.
They're saying like a ship hit it in San Clemente or something. I don't know the whole story, but basically,
I'll look it up.
Yeah, but basically, a whale just showed up in Huntington Beach overnight, and like everyone was scared because like it stank, and they thought like the odor would like kill them or something. It was big. It was the talk of the town for like 2 days. Yeah,
I bet I'm way then. Man, I gotta look that up now because I try to stay on top of that stuff. Again, I'm gonna quote Seinfeld, but there was a great episode where the whale is George saves a beach whale. He's making believe he's a marine biologist. You should just watch that one because it's one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. And Larry David threw a couple of lines in where I lost it, but it's gotten to the point they make T-shirts because there's a talk. Because what I love about Seinfeld that people a lot of times don't get from other generations, it's like Larry David doesn't care about who gets things sometimes. There's so many hidden things like styles from 40 movies and references to contemporary movies that I explain to my nephews. They go, "Oh, I didn't know that," because they love it. They watch it. They watch the DVDs. I said, "Now here, this is a reference to that movie, The Marathon Man." And, "Oh, really?" I said, "This is a reference to a famous Arthur Miller play, and really, really." And anyway, there's a T-shirt that George has a line to say he was angry that day, my friends, like an old man sending soup back in a deli, right? Yeah. Well, my brother-in-law just sent that to me, that T-shirt, the name. But what happened was that we went to Maui, and there was this like environmental group that has these tours, and we're going out on the water. And I said, "You probably don't know this, but this Seinfeld episode, the young guy started doing this. He was angry that day, my friends, like an old man sending soup back in the deli." I went, "Holy Christ!" Because we were singing.
My mom just texted me, and she really wants me to ask you this question.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna read it.
I got plenty of time.
Okay.
I'm a pain in the ass.
Ask Mike in the movie Making a Killing, when you dropped the nail in the bathtub, was that a nail clipper in the bathtub? Was that a character choice or your choice?
Oh, that was my choice. Oh God, this is. I can answer if you want. I can answer what happened.
Yeah.
That movie was good. My friend Devin, who lives in the Big Island, Hawaii, is originally from New Jersey. It looks like Johnny Depp or Brando. Him and his wife live there. He is an underwater guy. He saves manta rays and this and that. He wanted to make something different. Unfortunately, he left out, because he thought people wouldn't believe it, 3 or 4 great stories, because it was based on a real story. And he thought people wouldn't believe it. I said, no, that's what makes the difference between that and the Coen brothers, Do something quirky, outrageous, take a chance. And they also edited out, and he regretted it. They listened to some guy, and who the hell knows, but they listened to some editor. There was a big scene where me and my partner, whatever, brother or whatever it's supposed to be, I collapse after I'm like speaking. I'm the mayor in the town, the mortician. It's really an interesting story. And I collapse against the fence with heart trouble. And it's a whole heavy scene, and crew and everybody said, oh, that's going to be great. And someone convinced them to take it out, and it doesn't explain. They didn't build up enough because of the editing, some of it, why that I was ready to die there.
Right.
So, oh boy. So the day of, Devin says to me, there's so many famous things. Godfather, Hitchcock, there's so many famous deaths where they do things. What can we do to make this different? When we started thinking, hey, okay, God, this is something weird to tell you publicly, but
if you don't want to do it, don't worry about it. I mean,
I do want to know. It's very important, but
okay, all right.
Maybe I can tell you privately. No, say, well,
tell me when we get lunch.
I'll tell you. Okay, but it was basically an homage. Part of it was an homage to my brother Jimmy. Survived so much in Vietnam, and it was about 5 years ago. He was having health. He was collecting things connected with Agent Orange. He was one of the most intense areas, one of the most interesting, kindest, generous people, and lived in a lot of different worlds and cultures. I'd love to tell you about him. He was really interesting. But I was blessed through crazy ways, because I went to I flew back. I got to be there when, as people say, he passed on. And I was so lucky to be with him. We were so close. Because for years I was flying back. We'd watch things on Memorial Day. He had such a unique sense of humor, and we watched things on Veterans Day, visit him, and he didn't wear that on his sleeve. I don't want to make that. He lived in so many different worlds and had this real streetwise guy, fascinating guy. But I might as well tell this, because it is an important thing that day. It was so strange the last few days. Different things happened. Billy Bob Thornton, I was staying with my oldest brother. Billy Bob Thornton asked me if I'll do this Bad Santa 2. He calls me. I said, Jesus Christ, I'm not remember. Sure, yeah. And I wound up doing it a couple of weeks later, Montreal. But my different things were happening. My brother was seeing things and just really, really vibrant. And then he was getting sick the last couple of days. And I went there. So I had to stick around for an audition. It was Martin Luther King Day, I remember. And there's a lot of stories I'll tell you personally. But at one point, he asked me to cut his nails. And I'm like, I was too nervous. And the West Indians are the best caregivers on earth. It was in a more of a home rehab place for kidneys, this and that. It wasn't. They didn't have all sorts of medical staff there. And I was like, it was so funny. I was cutting. He wanted me to cut his nails. It was the strangest thing. So my friend Esther, one of my best friends in the world, and her mom was a survivor. But although Esther's not Orthodox, she said, that's really interesting. And I'm not Jewish, but just that. But she told me, she said, in certain, I guess, Orthodox communities, they might have a stranger where they cut the nails. Mm-hmm. After that, they cut the nails and they bring in a person. I don't know if it has the sheets, but I think it's a stranger comes in and prepares the body, if I can put it that way.
Right.
It was such an odd thing. And my character was a mortician, and I talked to this guy Yeah, dealt with a lot of people in the Persian Gulf. We were in a town called Las Vegas, New Mexico, where the Coen brothers filmed. Are we running out of time? Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
my sister.
Oh, okay.
She didn't know I was on the podcast.
So Devin said you told me this story about your brother and the nails, and about when Esther had told me this interesting story. I had told it to Devin because it was really weird. My brother out of nowhere and he couldn't even speak the last day. Not like he was suffering or anything, but something happened with his voice. And I was like, wow, we're watching like old shows together and this and that. And I said, okay. And then finally, this woman, I believe she was Jamaican, said, Jimmy wants you to cut his nails. I said, I know, but I was just so nervous because they take the blood thinners. I was afraid I was going to clip it. She said, I'll do it, Jimmy. It's okay. And then literally like 10 minutes later, they called me and he was going away. I called my wife and she said, is there a pulse, say goodbye. And we definitely made the choice not to do DNR because it would have been very torturous, as I tell you, different friends I knew. So she said, say goodbye. My wife really is very philosophical. She goes to the end with people, but also even way back in med school was constantly educating herself on that and has dealt with so much. That's a great story I'll tell you about her that was told. So many great stories, but I got to be there and just sit and just say the light, and was so peaceful. It was such actually a great ending and a blessing. And I told the story to Devin, the director, and he said, would you mind if we incorporated that somehow? I don't want to abuse it. I said, no, actually it'd be a great homage to my brother.
Oh,
and so
that's
I
very sweet.
And Peter, the DP, was absolutely super brilliant. And what we did, he had me prepare myself. And, spoiler alert for anyone, but he had me look, and they really made me to make me kind of, and look and sweating and look in the mirror and step into the bathtub with my clothes on and my shirt and my pants, sit there and start cutting my nails. And he took this great shot. I get to 2 nails, as I did, right, 2, 3. And then it just drops in the water. And remember there was blood, I think, I can't remember, but it just drops in. And then I go limp, and my partner, brother, lover, whatever is supposed to be, friend, comes running back in after we had this big argument. He runs through the rainstorm, played by Jude Moran, who was absolutely brilliant. And he comes in and finds me dead. He blew his chance, right? Aida Totoro was in it. He runs off with her, and then we have this, fight, and just like, and I'm dying there, and it just dropped. And it was a beautiful shot. And I think
Christopher Lloyd was in it too.
Oh, he was, oh man, it was like 78 when we were doing it. And he got one word wrong. He apologized to me. I said, are you serious? And that was my first day of shooting. It was with him. We had this really great scene, and he was just always very complimentary. And like I said, if Devin had put in a couple of the stories, he knows that now. It was his first film, first feature, really. Had he put in, I think that the explanations of scenes, there was scenes, had he not cut out a few things, there were things that my character and Christopher Lloyd, we were both morticians in it. Mm-hmm. And I was the mayor, and what else was I? It was some third thing I did.
You were the priest too, right?
Oh, I was a priest. I started my own church. That's right.
Yeah.
And it was really wacky, and they cut out some of the priest stuff. And again, he listened, in my opinion, and I hope the editors doesn't hear this and say how I felt it. But it was a good film. It was a solid film, but it could have been, we had Michael Jai White also. It could have been a boom film. Right. If he had really just listened to his own instincts in the writing and the editing, and he knows that now. It's not like I'm not trashing. We discussed this, and
he's a huge Reza Riffs fan.
Devin, I'm going to tell him that.
No, I'm just, but no. I do have a funny Christopher Lloyd story that I think you'll laugh. So I actually met Christopher Lloyd like 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And it was at a bathroom because he was on the Fox lot. He was filming a show or something. So I'm I'm peeing right next to Christopher Lloyd.
There's always great stories like that. Yeah.
And I'm just like looking at him weird, right? And like he's giving me like a weird look. I was like, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but are you Christopher Lloyd? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, I have a question for you. And we're still peeing, right? So it's really awkward. I was like, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit when you put the cartoon shoe in the dip? Why'd you do that? What'd that shoe ever do to you? And, and he just looked at me. He's like, I'm very sorry. And then he laughed, and I'm still peeing. I was like, why did I ask Christopher Lloyd that?
That is brilliant. I wound up working with him on shows that didn't go or being canceled. And he'd always be like, he'd just look at me like that, right? It's like De Niro would do that too. But I mean, he'd look at me like, you know, we would talk a little, but that was it. And now finally we get on this one. We actually had human conversations, you know, and he was very, very interesting guy. And when we did that, I know the makeup artist, Janine, got very close with him, and he started having her like come do certain jobs for him in New York and whatnot, you know. And he was really something. And there was a thing they cut out a lot of it. I do this whole lecture or homily or whatever at the church, and it didn't make sense, a lot of things. He came over to me and he went, yeah. And it was weird. There was a couple of scenes cut out between me and Jude for whatever reason, whoever controlled it, that I think would have made a big difference. Yeah. It was, but I don't know, when you see the film, one of our favorite scenes was we had this conversation after the murder, the death, you know, and we're talking about how to, no, because we weren't necessarily, you didn't know who the killers were. And this story was based on, I think, a story in Colorado. And someone finally got convicted. I don't know, one of the characters, but it's really, if he got stuck more to the story. Because I got interviewed, I did it yesterday, Kenosha, Wisconsin. These people asked me, this guy always has some sarcastic or something. He says, come on, really? You were this and that, your character, that's really stretching the imagination. I said, well, it was based on something that happened. And I went back to Devin and I said, you imagine that he said that to me? He said, how much of that is true? He said, that and your character smoked pot with Christopher Lloyd's character and you did this. I said, why wasn't that in a movie? He goes, I didn't think people would believe it. Look, this guy didn't believe the real stuff already. Right. And I said, well, the hell with that. You got to do what you got to do. So it was a big lesson to he and I. It was a lesson for me because I'm involved in some projects. And I'm one of the projects I'm involved in. This guy said, we're doing our story. And if they don't like it here in the places I'm pitching, I'm taking it to Europe because it's an international story. I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, because I was on a film and that he saw. I said, I was on a film where I saw that it didn't. Yeah, you see things sometimes that cut out. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And I've been kept in famous movies, and I've even in some famous movies where I was asked to ad-lib something that maybe went a second too long and they regret it. Like I heard that, like Martin Scorsese said, oh, he wanted that other scene, but he laughed so much, but it didn't fit in with the editing of the next scene. You know, it was a second too long. It made it to like 4 cuts, you know. But then you take something like I had mentioned before, the dramatic scene with Robin Williams, and it just didn't work for what he wanted to do. He wanted to, and then his partner, Elaine May, his former wife, said, and he said, and she was right. And I said, yeah, he was right. And he wrote this beautiful letter to me, Mike Nichols. But it's funny what's left in, what works, what doesn't, you know?
Well, we are running out of time, but I did want to ask this one last question because I like the ladies, but you know, this is my hero, and I don't like asking questions about what was it like working with someone, but I'm going to. Sure. I'm going to. I'm obsessed with John Cusack. So.
Well, he's a friend, yeah.
So, like, what was it like working with him, the Cusack? How cool was that?
Well, he wouldn't take credit for it, but I'm convinced he got me the job. So I told you about, I've thrown these words out, iconic. My friend Donnie, God rest his soul, in Chicago, he was like, oh God, you wouldn't get this reference, Toots Short. He was a central, interesting character in Chicago in my life and with people's lives, between sports people and hockey, and Michael Jordan would come there. But Cusack was his friend, and I met John through him. So we would hang out and this and that. And there was a couple of things he got me involved in, but him and Billy Bob on that thing, Ice Harvest, was such a great experience. John was the type of guy who would say, "Oh wait, I think I'm blocking Mike's angle here." That's how aware he was. He's got this, I don't want to say weird shyness, in public. He grew up in the theater. I guess Jeremy Piven's dad then the parents were famous then, and he was at the theater. And God, he's helped so many people. And I know him and Jeremy, and I think basically grew up. But I know that you'd see Jeremy show up in so many of his films.
I opened up for Jeremy one night.
Did you really?
Yeah, he. I guess they had I guess him and Cusack had a fight that I didn't know about, because Jeremy Piven didn't. They didn't.
He, magazine, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't like my jokes, and because I was like, I'm the John Cusack of stand-up comedy. I just say anything. And then I was like, sometimes it's good, and sometimes I wish I was better off dead. And now I'm opening up for Jeremy Piven, and you call that serendipity. And Jeremy Piven didn't like that at all.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's tremendous. Well, how about, in our lunch, the stories of not that I'm trying to be mysterious to people here, but there's a bunch of stories. But John was always super kind to me. I haven't seen him in a couple of years when Donnie passed away, but he would actually call me, "What's going on with Donnie?" I'd be the guy, and John is, I know he has an active political life too. And also, he goes all over the world and this, and
I think he's a genius. I think he's also a writer, and
yes,
a lot of the films that he does, he rewrites his own dialogue to make it fit his need. And a lot of people don't give artists that credit when they're taking a writer's own point of view, and he's tweaking it for the character and the story.
Spader's a lot like that, I felt, where he would understand, and not just for himself, but for other people. And John was very careful also that I came off well, other people, he cared about the whole film. And I've had great talks with him. And we did a pilot that was interesting. I just think it was way too controversial for network TV, but he always told me he wanted to do a thing about even Chicago politics, wanted me to play him. We'd go to Cub games.
Yeah, he's always there. That's why I want to I want to move to Chicago so I could be like, all right, am I gonna sit by John?
And what's funny, he's very kind, but he's very shy in public. He pulls the hat down. He at least years ago, I don't know what it's like now for him, but oh my God. It was hard for him to go out in public and be like the Beatles or something like that. You know what I mean? It was like, since in Chicago, I don't know about places, but when you'd be there, like he'd say, "Okay, Mike," he'd be throwing out the ball, the first ball, or something like that, and the seventh inning stretch, and we'd have this suite, and he'd say, "Oh, Mike, listen, when we leave, really walk down." I'm going, what? Are you serious? But yeah, I'll listen. Sure enough, oh my God, he's got his hat down. People are, people. I'm different, approachable. I'm a character guy, or Dumb and Dumber, Goodfellas, or people feel they can talk to me. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's really he's like, he's one of those people that I've been with that I say, whoa, people, so it was hard. We'd come to Stanley's, and we'd have to go to a back room because, there'd be different people I met through him. God, his friend, and oh God, different. A lot of interesting people. We'll have to cover that. But yes, I think he's brilliant. Yeah. And always very kind to me. Very, very interesting, very knowledgeable, reading about world events, this and that. And him and D.B. Sweeney are great friends. And from what I hear, they're on polar opposites when they discuss, but they're friends, but they think a little differently about things, I guess.
I met Cusack because what he does is he goes around cities and he plays a movie. He does a Q&A and stuff at theaters.
Okay.
And I met him there, and this is why he might have a restraining order on me. I don't know. But like, I was like, he's my hero, you know, and like, I've always wanted to interview him. And my dad says that probably will never happen, but I still, in my heart, believe it will.
Oh, one of these days, maybe we'll make it happen.
He gave me his assistant's number, and his assistant never picks up. But anyways, so like, I texted all these questions, and John's mic'd, right? And he's like, this Keith Reza has a lot of questions. And like, it's a sold out theater, you know, and he was just so funny because all his answers on the questions, he was just so nice. And then he said, tell Keith Reza to come to the back for a VIP and I'll take a photo with him. So I got a photo with him, and I was like, hey, I would love to interview you on my podcast. And he's like, here's my assistant's number, we'll make it happen. That was 3 years ago, but I mean, I still in my heart feel it will happen someday, you know?
Yeah, and it's been a few years since I talked to him because he kind of went off different places, and not that he needed only me. When he was concerned about Donnie's health, he would call me and this and that. But it's funny, I haven't been there, I'm not living there, and my connection, I go in there and see mostly family, grandchildren, but I still have friends there. But a lot of times the focus, we would hook up at this place, famous place, Stanley's, that Donnie owned and doesn't exist anymore. And I get messages still from people like, I went by Stanley's. And so I know when the time is right, I'll see John again. But I have
make sure you put in a good word for me. Say,
I got it. I feel funny that I told that story about my brother, but actually it's a good thing. I mean, he really lived such a very vibrant, interesting life. And I thought it was a blessing at the end. And there's a lot of things happened. We had this great funeral, just a diverse few guys and Vietnam veterans with the long hair saluting. And it was like a very small thing, you know, and the day after was a massive blizzard. My wife just made it back to operate in California, different friends. And I stayed with one of my best friends in the world, Brian Rose, Captain Cranky, who coaches me in acting, directing, and he's an actor in his own right. And it was a very special time. And to put that in a film, I felt was an homage. And my friend Esther coached me on that, just told me about the ritual, and maybe in even some other cultures, it's a ritual, but it was really interesting. So I'm blown away that your mom picked that up. Yeah, that was my choice with the director. That wasn't in the script.
Mike, I hate to be rude, but I did tell my sister I'd take her out to lunch. Where can the folks find you and support you? Cameo, Twitter?
Cameo, you know what? I should break down, especially now that I'm getting on the produce side. I should break down and get Instagram, right? But Cameo, geez. I feel like, I just hate to ask people to spend money on. Yeah, Cameo, it's not that much. Yeah, I could, that's the best way. And I will work on maybe breaking down and getting an Instagram at least, right? So I should do that. But you, remember we got to, because we got to set up a lunch now.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
I have a few places, in Tustin Market that are fabulous.
Yeah, all right. I'll go there. I'm going to book you on Cameo right now. Thank you so much, Mike. It was such an honor. And
likewise.
You really made my day. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. And you're a great interviewer, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
You did a great job. And what else can we do? We didn't offend anyone. We did it all. Okay.
We'll have you back.
Yes, gladly.
All right. Have a great day, Mike. Thank you so much.
Great job. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.